Hi everyone, this is Stephanie, your host, and co-host Squeaker is running around here somewhere. And this is Stephanie Builds Wealth. And on this channel, I am going to create a space where having open discussions about what we all know to be our finances, our habits, to how we developed our behavior towards finances, our internal monologues, and increasing our financial awareness through psychology and normalizing conversations about talking about money and finances and investing. So, welcome if you're new, welcome back if you've been here before, and thank you for sharing your time and energy and thoughts with me as we have this conversation. So, today I was very intentional about how I wanted to present myself, how I wanted to reach out to you and share an experience that happened to me earlier this week. And if you have been following my channel and you're subscribed and get notifications, I posted something that said that I had applied for a promotion to increase my income, as that's part of my plan to get out of debt and increase my available money to put towards investing to build wealth, right? So I want to say in the last 6 months that I had applied for 2 positions, both directly involved in my current job, just in a leadership role. So I had applied for the position about 2 months ago, and I got a very generic letter Thursday morning, a little bit before lunch, or after lunch, just letting me know that they thanked me for applying, but they decided to move on to other people. And I didn't have a reactionary response to this. I wasn't immediately offended. I wasn't shocked. I wasn't disappointed. I just thought about it. And this is something that's, I would recommend, very helpful to any aspect of your life, is when you receive some news. I'm just going to say news generic because it could be life-changing news, it could be work news, something that would really move people to be reactionary in most situations. And I've learned through my psychology training that having a reactionary or impulsive response to some big news is usually very detrimental. So I sat with that information and I thought about the pros and cons of it. And then I couldn't help but in the back of my mind, realize that there had now been a pattern established. So when I used to work at the hospital, I was there for about 3 years, and I had a terrible shift. I was the only one that worked 11 a.m. to about 9:30 p.m.-ish. Only one. And I had applied 5 different times to change my shift, and 5 different times I was rejected. And I know you're going to think, well, this is based off performance, this is based off of seniority. All those things are correct. However, at the end of the day, management reserves the right to hire and let go as they deem fit. And there were definitely people that came in to work at the hospital that had much lower seniority than me, much less experience, and they were given those promotions, the shift changes in the medical world. And it was really frustrating, and I wasn't the only one that was really shocked by that. Other people much more senior than me were upset with that. But I had recognized that there was a pattern. And by the 3rd time, I was very unsure of how this would go. I was a great worker. I had taken a lot of extra shifts. I would help out when I could, and I was very reliable. I had doctors that knew that when I was in the room, they could trust me in case an emergency would happen, and I was very creative and quick thinking on my feet. So around the 4th and 5th time, around time 4, I applied again for another shift change and was rejected. And then by the 5th time I was rejected, I realized that no matter how hard I worked, no matter how many doctors, and I say doctors in the sense that in the medical system there's a little bit of a hierarchy, So like medical workers, like nurses, surgical techs, x-ray techs were kind of here. Doctors are here, and then anesthesia's up here. I'm sure people will want to fight me on that, but that's the medical field. So once I realized that it didn't matter who was vouching for me, it didn't matter how much work I dedicated to the company and how much personal sacrifice with my time and sleep and health that I gave to them, the company was perfectly content keeping me here, right here. And I was not okay with that. And I realized at that point that I was going to have to make the decision to look for a more accommodating shift that would allow me to go back to school because I had to drop out due to that shift, and let me get back to having some type of work-life balance. So I left. Now, bringing it back to present day, current, I received that email and I just sort of sat there and I read it, and I sat with my thoughts and my feelings, and I wasn't immediately upset. I was definitely disappointed because I definitely could have used the salary increase, and I could have used the new skill sets and training that I would have learned in that role to better me in the future. But I also noticed that there was now a pattern. So if something happens once, okay, it's once. We don't really have enough information to decide really anything out of that. But when something happens a second time, now a pattern has been established. And I thought to myself, I really hope that this isn't something that's repeating from previous situations where the company is perfectly happy in keeping me right here, because that's what works for them at the time. And I understand that, because had I moved out of my current position into the leadership role, what I do is very specific, and you can't just bring somebody in off the street and just expect them to integrate seamlessly into that role while learning all of our policies and procedures. So I realized that there was a chance that either I didn't meet the transfer requirement because I was 7 days shy of my 1 year mark, which again, at the end of the day, if there is really truly a need for something, management will make a choice that overrides the policies and procedures, because at the end of the day, it's their name on, they're signing on the document, they're taking responsibility. So I didn't really believe that that was the case. I mean, if it is, I'm really shocked by that. But then it got me thinking, wouldn't this be a really good topic to talk about with all of you? And I want to share a couple things. I took some notes down that I'm going to be integrating slides into this video, because I felt it was really important that not only am I talking to you, but I want people to visually see the information, because I learn visually as well. Preparing for a promotion or preparing to ask for a pay increase scenario, okay? So step one is going to be doing your research. You want to prepare before the annual review. And you want to do this about midway through the year. And the reason why you want to do this is because most companies have already allocated how much money is in the budget to go to salaries and who's going to be getting what, okay? And I have 3 different websites that you can go to and play around with and start doing your research. I have done this before in my first surgical tech job. I was several years in and realized that there was a massive pay discrepancy between people who were newer than me, the same level than me, less specialty experience, more specialty experience. And I started doing the research on my own after having a very rude awakening at my first review in my first adult job outside of a casino. So the 3 websites are going to be payscale.com, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics.gov, and then salary.com. Okay, so for example, in my first surgical tech job, let me back up even more so you understand here, there's some context. I grew up in Las Vegas, And the majority of jobs at the time were casino based. And the casino is very straightforward, very cut and dry. When they post a position, they say, this is how much you're getting per hour. And either you're part of a union or you're not. And typically, if you're part of a union, it's already in the bargaining agreement that you have X amount of money coming through your annual review and any type of bonuses or benefits you have, right? So the majority of my jobs for years, now my first surgical tech job after graduation was about 27 years of age. So between 16 and 27, casino jobs, very cut and dry, no negotiating, nothing. So at the time when I was putting myself through surgical tech school, I was making $13.50 an hour working at the spa receptionist desk. When I had interviewed for the position, I was told that I would be starting at 18 something an hour. I don't remember the cents at this point, it's been a long time. And so I was very excited. That was gonna be a big increase for me, my first real adult job. So I accepted the position. And then when I got the documentation to sign, there was a big difference in the pay. I was told I would be getting 18 something an hour. And the paper that I received to sign to accept my job offer was starting at $16.50 an hour. Now, I was the only one in my family to go to a college and get extra education outside of, elementary, middle school, and high school. I am first generation American. Both my parents immigrated to this country from the Middle East and from Mexico. So it's very different there. The culture is very different there with education and job opportunities. So I grew up not knowing how any of this stuff worked. I had nobody to mimic growing up. I had no one to talk to. Nobody that I knew worked in the medical field. It was all casino based. I had no resources, no idea where to go. So I assumed when I signed that the $16.50 was, I guess, a starting pay. And then after the probationary period, customary to the casinos, that I would increase to that 18 something an hour. I didn't know any better. I thought that's just how it worked. I had no idea that they were setting me up to screw me over, and I had no idea that I had any ability to negotiate a salary or benefits package. No idea. So I took the position and I busted my butt for that first year as a surgical tech in my first adult job, right? And after my first review, I sat down and I was so excited. I couldn't wait to see that 18 something an hour. So I was sat down and I had my leadership tell me that they were impressed with me, that I was acclimating really well, that I felt like I had been here longer than a year and everyone really liked me and I had a good work ethic. And so they're telling me, oh, and you got a 2% increase, and that is amazing because we never give out 2% increases. So I'm feeling really good. And then they hand me the pay, they slide me over the paper to show my increase. The 2% pay increase, I am looking at you in the eye and I'm not lying to you. It was 2 cents. 2 cents. 2 cents. Couldn't believe it. And then I immediately realized that this was going to be a problem, and I had asked about what happened to the 18 something an hour. No, they had no clue, totally gaslit me. They didn't have any clue what I was talking about. It wasn't written down anywhere. There wasn't proof of anything. It was all verbal. And I realized that this was going to be a problem. That's Squeakers playing with her toy. So I went home and I started Googling and researching, how do you get a pay increase? How do you prepare for it? And so what I did, it took me 5 years to do this because we had such turbulent times with management that they just sort of kept leaving every year. And there was a good year where we didn't have anybody as management. We just were kind of running ourselves. So by the time we had stable management, it had been about 5 years later. And finally, I was able to take time with the new management and I had all of my paperwork ready. I had done my comparison to find out, with my years of experience, with the facility that we had, the type of facility, how many employees we had, the type of specialties we did there, how many specialties I did, my experience, my years in that I should be making about 25 an hour, and I was making 1650 an hour, 1670 an hour. I hadn't budged at all in that 5-year period, because for 2 of those years, we weren't given raises or bonuses, not equally. There were a favorite group in the medical field, and they were given raises and bonuses. The rest of us were not. So one manager was actually fired because they were playing favorites and giving certain people significant pay increases and bonuses and penalizing the rest of us by not doing that, or giving us just enough write-ups that we didn't qualify for a pay increase or bonus. So they were fired. And so I sat down and I showed them, look, I've been here for 5 years. These are the specialties I do. I do every single specialty. I have this much experience, this training, this certification. I have these people who can vouch for me, who have written letters of recommendation saying I've done X, Y, Z. And the manager looked at me and she seemed shocked that I wasn't getting paid that to begin with. So literally in one paycheck, I went from making $16.70 an hour to making $25 an hour. Significant increase. But I had all the information to back up why I wanted that. What the median pay range, the average pay range for all of my experience and specialties and years in, and versus what I was getting. So I did that. And not only when I brought that to her attention, she actually realized when she looked at other people's salaries that there was a significant pay discrepancy from the management before her. And I forget the term, but they did something where they ended up doing some type of audit to rectify the pay discrepancy. So people who were making way more than they should have, they were bumped down. People who should have been making a lot more than they were bumped up, and things sort of leveled out. And then there became a average hiring rate. That was a lot of learning that I did in that position. A lot of learning about work outside of the casino, that negotiation was a thing. You want to learn, and I took this with me to other places where I was consistently on top of my education, my continuing education credits, the skills that I could do, the doctors that I knew, people who would vouch for me. And I learned to negotiate a strong starting salary package and benefits package in order to keep me there as I worked there, to help level out, well, I guess to help give some distance between my starting pay versus just how generally the cost of life goes up. So I learned quite a bit about that. So slide number 2, when you're preparing to have this talk, you want to sit down with yourself, and it might be difficult at first because you just learn things as a part of your day-to-day that you don't even realize that you've learned so many more skill sets than you did when you started. So you want to sit down, get a pen and paper, and you want to document all the times you lead projects and instances your contribution led to the company's success, not only within, but with customers returning as well. Get documentation from people you've had success with. Ask your coworkers, project managers, even customers, if it's aligned with your company policy, you don't want to overstep your bounds and get fired. They would be, ask if they would be gracious enough to write a brief letter or email about how you contributed to a successful outcome, right? What training, certificates, skills, and or software applications have you learned to put you ahead of your peers to justify your ask to level up? You can't just walk into a place, give some sob story about how your wife or partner left you and you're a single mom now, or your partner left you, you're going through divorce and you need money. Nobody cares. You are going to a place of work. You are a professional. You are providing a set of skills in exchange for financial compensation. Everybody has a personal crisis or sob story. Your company doesn't care about that. They need to know why they should be giving you this money and why you feel that you deserve it. And they need facts. They don't want to have emotional conversations about how you're having a breakdown. So fun story about that. At my first surgical tech job that gave me my gracious 2-cent raise, one of our coworkers was going through a divorce, and she ended up all of a sudden, overnight, her I guess ex-husband now at that point had moved out, and she was left with the house and 2 little children. And it was just her taking care of the 2 kids and the house. And so she ended up having a conversation in private with management saying that her situation had drastically changed and she was a very hard worker. She came from a very prestigious orthopedic program and was teaching us things that we didn't even know we could do. So she definitely had earned that pay increase, absolutely. And we thought she should have been lead of all of our surgical techs, and she wasn't. So anyway, long story short, she asks, I'm going through all these personal crises. I need more income for me to stay here. And they said, we understand, we got you. And they increased her salary by 10 cents. Can't even make this up. Eventually, she ended up leaving and going to a different healthcare system because 10 cents? Are you kidding me? So when you're going to have these conversations with your management, with your leadership, and you're going to ask for either a career change within the company, an internal transfer, or a salary increase or promotion, you want to have facts. You're going in as a professional, you have your professional skill set, you're talking to another professional who is a representative of the company, and you're wanting to have an open conversation of, hey, look, I think that, you want to go in about 6 months beforehand, have a conversation and get the ball rolling and say, hey, I want to have a talk that I'm looking to either make an internal transfer or I'm going to need an increase in pay, and I want to get that set up before review time comes. Let's have a conversation about it. Here's my documentation. Here's all my paperwork. Here's my reviews. Here's my certificates and training that I've accomplished. Are there other things that I need to do to hit those marks? And what those are called are KPIs. They are key performance indicators. So when you're getting feedback from your leadership and they're saying, okay, we hear you, but in order for you to be able to be in a place where we can allocate an increase in salary for you or approve the promotion, you need to hit A, B, and C by this time, okay? So now that you have done your research and you know your value, be confident in having an open conversation with your leadership about strategy. Now, I did say that most companies will already have allocated a budget for the salaries for the following year. However, there's a loophole that isn't always set in stone. There are two things you can do, and you're going to know if you can do this or not. One thing is if you are in a position of leverage and either you have FU money where you have enough money saved up 6 to 12 months. So I would say have a year of savings minimum saved up before you try to pull this move. So 2 instances, if you have FU money that you can use to protect yourself and leverage yourself, or 2, if the company really truly cannot afford to lose you without causing a significant disturbance of business or customer flow. So use these things to your advantage. Keep in mind, most companies they're generating income for the board, for, their shareholders. And how they do that is they're trying really hard to increase revenue, but by keeping costs down or not letting them move much. And companies do this by keeping the least amount of investment towards labor, benefits, and salary. Those things tend to drain company profits quite a bit. So again, remember, you want to look at this and have confidence that you are a professional working for a company, and the agreement when you were hired was that you were going to exchange your skill set and your professional services in exchange for financial compensation, and you would help the company succeed and hit milestones. So if you're already doing those things, you already have leverage, you know your value, your ask to level up is not ridiculous, and it shouldn't be scary. It really shouldn't. I have done this several times in my personal experience. So I would say also a very key point, if you're going to pull the last 2 moves, you want to be aware of something here, okay? If you go the route to leverage how needed you are by the company, you must be able to show 100% that you are committed and you're serious And if they do not meet your ask, and you've met all the KPIs and they still won't give you a decent pay increase, they won't allow you to do an internal transfer or hit that promotion, you must be willing to walk away from the job. Most people will bluff and they will diminish their value by not walking away, and they will take more and more disrespect and be overlooked for more promotions and overlooked for more pay increases the longer you stay, because you tried to bluff and you didn't follow through. So I have done both of these things, and I have leveraged my skill set, I've leveraged my value with companies, and I can tell you that I have done this with no backup because I was just so sick of the disrespect that I just wasn't gonna stay, and I was ready to walk out of there. And when I had this situation and I told my management, I was like, look, this isn't working out. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to work with your company in the time that we've been together, but my goals aren't being met, and I'm definitely giving you positive returns. So this is as far as we go, and I wish you the best in your future endeavors. And I'll say great things about the company on my way out. And the look on the faces when they realize that they can't push you around and take advantage of you because of your current financial situation, companies are not used to that. And they will say, that's fine, we'll hire somebody else. Of course the company is gonna hire somebody else. But the problem is, if your position is a position where dedicated and extensive training and skill sets have to be utilized, the company is going to hit a hiccup because they can't recover from that. It will not be a seamless integration from you leaving and someone else coming in. So you have leverage in that situation where if they really can't afford to lose you, they'll negotiate terms. And keep in mind, when you are negotiating terms, be very controlled with your body language and your facial expressions. You're not smiling, you're not nervously giggling things, you're not talking, and you're not you're not mumbling to yourself, and you're not looking at the floor and hunching in. You're sitting straight up, you're maintaining eye contact, and you're saying what you need to say, nothing more. And you don't say anything, because the person who speaks first after that loses, and you want to win. It's a silent war of wits here. So you need to say what you need to say. You're gonna sit back, maintain eye contact, keep a stern face, and you want them to acknowledge you first. And that's how you know that you now have negotiating power. Because if they're not gonna say anything, then you're going to keep being taken advantage of, and there's no point for you to continue exchanging your services as a professional for a company that won't compensate you fairly for those services. I have also done this where I had a conversation, I showed the documentation to support me, and they did not want to meet that. In fact, there was one situation where we were told to write anonymous reviews of the company and our position and how we feel things work there. And I was pretty bold in my reply about how I thought it was very unfair. And I know that using the word unfair in a professional setting is very silly and immature, because no one's trying to do fair things, they're trying to conduct business. But I thought it was very unfair how when I was hired, I was told that I was going to be getting 40 hours a week, no problem. And come to find out that the company, in an effort to save money through salary, rewrote what the term full-time meant for them, and full-time meant 30 hours a week, not 40. So automatically, everyone's paycheck was automatically short 10 hours no matter what you did. And if you tried to work later shifts or take extra, they would literally just compensate for the following week. So if you worked 50 hours this week, they would cut you short next week. You couldn't win. And so I had mentioned that as, if you're going to be hiring people and telling them it's going to be a full-time job, you need to keep your word for that. People have financial obligations outside of your establishment that they need to be responsible for. And my letter was singled out of everybody else's. And when we were around the nurse's station desk, the director at the time had pulled out my letter and was talking about the reviews and how disappointed she was in everyone who thought that they weren't being treated fairly, very much poor leadership, a lot of gaslighting and manipulation. and looked at everybody in the eye when she was walking around with that letter. And she said, I'm telling you right now, this company's main goal is to take care of patients and make a profit while it does that. If you feel that you are not being properly compensated, your only option is to go elsewhere to seek employment, because we will not be increasing salaries here. So I have worked with places where they will call your bluff, and you have to be steadfast in your confidence and your ability to be rehired, and confidence in your skill set and your ability to learn and adapt quickly and bow out gracefully, because there's no future for you here. There's no progress, there's no forward momentum. So you staying is allowing people to devalue you and take advantage of your skill set as a professional and not compensate you fairly for that. So your company won't budge on the salary increase. They're not going to approve an internal transfer or promotion. So what do you do now? Now it's time to either be bold and leverage your skill set, or leverage your FU money if you have that, or it's time to prepare for you to leave and make moves in silence. Don't let them know that you have intentions. If you are not in a position to leverage yourself because you don't have FU money, and you know that your position leaving won't really cause enough of a disruption for them to want to negotiate, don't put yourself in the bullseye. You've had the conversation, they're aware of what you are wanting, and they're not meeting you with that. Okay, thank you for your time. I'm gonna get back to my work. And this is when you want to go ahead and start making moves in silence, okay? You want to sit down, and just like before, you're going to go home, take out a pen and paper, look at your old resume, and start totally fresh, okay? You are going to want to maybe delete everything and start a brand new resume template, something more simple, more modern, very clean, minimalistic, not too word heavy or graphics heavy. And what you want to do is update all of your skill sets that you have currently learned in your position. And I want to give some advice. If you have, the older you get, the more work history you have. If you have a particular industry you want to go to, or a position or career you want to go to, please make sure that your skills are relevant to the current 5 years. You don't want to put, like, say you're wanting to move up in management and you want to be a team leader for an accounting company. Nobody cares that you were a cashier when you were at Walmart at 15. You want to put skill sets and experience that's relevant to you maturing as a professional and help you transition to your new position. So you want to sit down, freshen up, update your resume. You want to include your training, certifications, skills, software applications, letters from teammates and customers to show that you can back up your skill set, because all of these things, they increase your value, so you have more negotiating power when you're applying for a position and you're being offered the role, and now you can negotiate a healthy salary and benefits package for yourself. And I want to stress something in closing here. Practice, practice, practice your interview techniques. Google most current hiring trends, most current interview questions, or most current interview scenarios, because, and I know this sounds really silly, and I know it sounds really dumb, and it feels weird and out of place to do that, but it is so essential as you grow older and you mature and you're telling on paper that you have all these skill sets and you're worth XYZ or 6 figures. If you give a terrible interview and you can't, what is the word I'm looking for? If you can't physically show up and present yourself the way you're showing and presenting yourself on paper, no one's taking you seriously. Making a little mistake here and there in interviews is, maybe touch and go, maybe acceptable, maybe not, depends on the situation, depends on the industry, depends on the person in the interview. But as a rule of thumb, if you're looking to increase your salary and you want to get to the 60s, 70s, 80,000s, 6 figures, you need to present yourself that you are top tier here, and that they're making an excellent choice in hiring you and putting a lot of faith in you that you're going to run things smoothly and take a lot of problems off of their plate and handle it. Going into an interview, having poor body language, closed body language, poor posture, slouching, presenting yourself unprofessionally, wrinkled clothing or with stains, or, really loud makeup or loud jewelry or hairstyles. Not that you can't be an individual, it depends in your field, for example. But if you're presenting yourself as sloppy, overly loud, possibly a problem that you're going to clash with the personalities that are already there in the office, you're probably not going to do well. And you want to be able to have professional conversations. So when someone asks you a question, you want to be able to have a confident reply back, confident body language, confident eye contact. You've got to maintain eye contact. I cannot tell you what it is with this generation and their terrible social skills. If you're looking at me and you want to get hired in this company and in this position and increase your pay, and you keep looking down or you keep looking around or you keep breaking eye contact every 20 seconds, that is extremely noticeable. It's very off-putting. Why would I trust you to be out there talking to customers if you can't maintain simple eye contact for a simple conversation? So we need to practice interview techniques, practice confident body language, practice confident speaking skills, and then have your friends be the interviewer and ask you these questions. Really be thoughtful in your replies. So, and then have your friends throw in some curveballs and see how you handle them. Are you able to be well under pressure? Because the interview is that's gonna tell you some things. When I worked in medical, you had to be steadfast under pressure. It just was a non-negotiable. You're working with people and they're having surgery. A lot of them are not healthy. There has been several times where we had a patient on the table and everything was fine, and just all of a sudden they die in the middle of surgery. They go into arrest. And you need to be able to have confidence in yourself, control and discipline in yourself, that when situations arise in a work environment, a project falls through, a customer threatens to cancel a high-dollar contract, or there's a problem with your staffing, you need to be able to step in, de-escalate the situation, and be able to properly communicate and ask questions to understand what is going on, and think really quick on your feet how you can handle this and mitigate what's going on and save the situation. So you really want to practice interview techniques. Confidence in your body language, confidence in your appearance, confidence in your ability to talk eloquently and confidently. So those are going to be my techniques and tips for how to do either looking for another job or preparing yourself to get an internal transfer, ask for a promotion, ask for a pay raise. And I'm sure there's YouTube videos out there nowadays for, all kinds of interview hacks and what have you. And it also would help to, do research on the field that you're in, see what the standards are, see where you're at with your education, your training. And if you need to go out on your own and get those skills, then do them, because places love that stuff. They love to see that you have the ability to make executive decisions and just get things done without being told that you have to do X, Y, Z. And your throat gets dry when you talk a lot. So I thank you very much for spending some of your time with me. And I would love to hear in the comments below how you have experienced transitioning from a different job to another company, transitioning internally, What were some of your best interview experiences or most terrifying interview experiences? What were some of the toughest interview questions that you were asked? I'd love to hear that. So feel free to share your thoughts down in the comments. And I keep forgetting to say this, but like and subscribe. It helps the algorithm for this channel and it helps to be able to reach more people. And I appreciate your time, and we will see you on the next video. Thank you.